Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jai Mishpad Paramsa Prajagacharya Ashtotra Sata Shri Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBD Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantra Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 12, Creation of Kumaras and Others, text 50. Please repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudiraye Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatir Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtuki. Okay, text 50. Please repeat after me. Rishinam Bhuri Viryanam Api Sargam Avishritam Gyatva Tad Dhridaye Bhuyas Chintayamasa Kaurava Rishinam Bhuri Viryanam Api Sargam Avishritam Gyatva Tad Hridaya Bhuyas Chintayamasa Kaurava Rishinam Bhuri Viryanam Api Sargam Avishritam Gyatva Tad Dhridaye Bhuyas Chintayamasa Kaurava. Prabhuji's. Rishinam Bhuri Viryanam Api Sargam Avishritam Gyatva Tad Dhridaye Bhuyas Chintayamasa Kaurava Rishinam Bhuri Viryanam Api Sargam Avishritam Gyatva Tadhridaye Bhuya Chintayamasa Kaurava. Rishinam Bhuri Viryanam Api Sargam Avishritam Yadva Tadhridaye Bhuryat Shintayamasha Kaurava. Transliteration, please repeat after me. Rishinam, of the great sages, Bhuri Viryanam, with great potential power, Api, in spite of, Sargam, the creation, Avirishtam, not extended, Gyatva, knowing, Tat, that, Hridaya, in his heart, Bhuyaha, again, Chintayam, Asa, he began to consider, Kaurava, O son of the Kurus. Translation by Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. O son of Kurus, when Brahma saw that in spite of the presence of sages of great potency, there was no sufficient increase in population, he seriously began to consider how the population could be increased. Please repeat after me. O son of the Kurus, when Brahma saw that in spite of the presence of sages of great potency, there was no sufficient increase in population, he seriously began to consider how the population could be increased. Okay, since there is no purport, I will read the rest of the verses. Again, there is no purpose for most of the verses, so I'll just read till the end of this chapter. So whoever starts tomorrow can read from the next chapter. Aho adbhutam etanme vyapritasyapi nityada nahi etandate prajanunam daivam atra vigathakam. Brahma thought to himself, alas, it is wonderful that in spite of my being scattered all over, there is still insufficient population throughout the universe. There is no other cause for this misfortune but destiny. Evam yukta kritastasya daivim chavekshatastada kasyam rupam abhud veda yat kayam abhichakshate. While he was thus absorbed in contemplation and was observing the supernatural power, two other forms were generated from his body. They are still celebrated as the body of Brahma. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Two bodies came out from the body of Brahma. One had a mustache and the other had swollen breast. No one can explain the source of their manifestation, and therefore until today they are known as the Kayam, or the body of Brahma, with no indication of their relationship as his son or daughter. Thabhyam rupa vibhagayam maithunam samapadhyate. The two newly separated bodies united together in a sexual relationship. Yastu tatra pumam sa abun manu swayambhuva swarat striya sich chitarupa kya mahish asya mahatmana. Out of them, the one who had the male form became known as the Manu, named Swayambhuva Manu, and the woman became known as Shatarupa, the queen of great Manu. Tada maithuna dharmena prajai edam babuvire. Thereafter, by sex indulgence, they gradually increased generations of population one after another. Sachapi shatarupayam panchapatyani ajijanat priyavarto uttanapadau tisraha kanyascha bharata akurthi devahutischa prashutir iti sathama. O son of Bharata, in due course of time, he, Manu, begot in Shatarupa 5 children, 2 sons, Priyavrata and Uttanapada, and 3 daughters, Akuti, Devahuti and Prashuti. Akutim ruchaye pradhat kardamaya tu madhyamam dakshayadhat prasutim cha yata apuritam jagat. The father, Manu, handed over his first daughter, Akuti, to the sage Ruchi, the middle daughter, Devahuti, to the sage Kardama, and the youngest, Prashuti, to Daksha. From them all the world filled with population. Purport. The history of creation of the population of the universe is given herewith. Brahma is the original living creature in the universe, from whom were generated the Swayambhuva Manu Swayambhuva and his wife Shatarupa. From Manu, 2 sons and 3 daughters were born, and from them all the population in different planets have sprung up until now. Therefore, Brahma is known as the grandfather of everyone, and the personality of Godhead, being the father of Brahma, is known as the great-grandfather of all living beings. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 11, text 39, as follows. Vayoryamo Agni Varuna Shashankha Prajapatistvam Prapitama Hascha Namo Namaste Astu Sahasra Kritva Punasya Bhuya Abhi Namo Namaste. You are the Lord of Air, the Supreme Justice Yama, the Fire, and the Lord of Rains. You are the Moon, and you are the Great Grandfather. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you again and again. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 3rd canto, 12th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Creation of Kumaras and Others. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Shakshur Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shuddhapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sakrajadam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishaganvitam Scha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Pashyat Teshatarne Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namo mahavadanyaya krishna prema pradayate krishnaya krishna chaitanya namine gauratise namaha. He Krishna karuna sindhu dinabandhu jagatpate gopesha gopika kanta radha kanta namostate tapta kanchana gaurangi radhe vrindavaneshwari vrishabhanu sude devi pranamami haripriye. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him, his lotus feet. Tavai vasmi, tavai vinayati vigyat, evitvam naimam sharanantikam. Hare Krishna, welcome to today's Bhagavatam class, chapter Creation of Kumaras and Others. Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam is, the other name of Srimad Bhagavatam is called Bhagavat Purana. To qualify as a Purana, according to the grammatical definitions, to qualify as a Purana, you need to have at least five types of topics to be discussed in that content, a minimum 5. Then it will be considered a Purana. If it is to be considered a Mahapurana, then you have to have 10 topics to be discussed to be considered a Mahapurana. So here, Vyasadeva, when he is writing Bhagavat Purana, to qualify his writing, he discusses the 10 topics. And we will discuss what the 10 topics are. So that his work is considered, qualifies as Mahapurana. One might ask, why is Vyasadeva describing Brahma's sex life? Why anybody wants to know about anybody else's sex life? It's quite private matter. Brahma's dynasty, creation, you can see Swayambha Manu and Chitrarupa, their union, their sex indulgence, and then procreation happened. Why all this? Why one should consider? Well, a lot of things described in Bhagavatam is not, we can't comprehend. We don't have the intelligence to comprehend. But one thing we can understand is, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that these topics were spoken by Sukadeva Goswami himself, and it was heard by the great king Parikshit Maharaj himself. So Sukadeva Goswami is not an ordinary person. He's a very exalted person. He's considered even exalted than his father Vyasadeva himself. He's considered more exalted than his father Vyasadeva. So if Sukadeva Goswami is speaking, and the great king Parikshit Maharaj, and Parikshit Maharaj is not an ordinary king. He is the embodiment of protection of Krishna. Krishna protected himself in the womb of his mother. So he is not an ordinary king. And if that extraordinary king is carefully listening to these topics, even though this topic doesn't make much sense to us, these topics are very important. And since Parikshit Maharaj heard it faithfully, we also should hear this topic faithfully, if we understand or we don't understand. So that's a reason what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, even though these topics starting from, there's a word used, sargam. Sargam means creation. So these topics, these 10 topics discussed, what is that, in second canto 2, I guess chapter 10 discusses these 10 topics, starting with Sargam. Sargam means Sarga, or primary creation. Primary creation. And you can see just the painting in front of me or behind you people, there's a painting there. That's Sarga, when Karanodakashayi Vishnu comes into existence. And then when Karanodakashayi Vishnu glances upon, creates the Mahatattva and injects Mahatattva with the living entities and 3 modes of material nature and time. These things are considered Sarga. Creation of Brahma and instructing Brahma, that comes as Visarga. So that's not even considered Sarga. The first Sarga is Karanodakashayi Vishnu. Even that, for us, we don't understand. We kind of read about it. Yes, Karanodakashayi came into existence, and he's lying down on Karana Ocean, causal ocean. But we can't really realize them. We can theoretically kind of know these, but we don't know what is Karana Ocean and how it looks and what it looks like and how he's lying down. We know. We can comprehend the ocean of salt water. We can even comprehend to some extent the ocean of, plain water, because we've seen plain water, unsalted water, and we can kind of extrapolate. The ocean is, you can have an ocean of, plain water. You go to a big reservoir, there's huge reservoirs, and you can see there's huge amount of fresh water. Then we can kind of comprehend, extrapolate that. What a freshwater ocean can look like. But Karana Ocean, we don't know what it is, so it's hard for us to understand. But still, we read about it, we repeat, and we have a theoretical knowledge of it. And then we have Visarga. Visarga means secondary creation. Secondary creation is when Brahma is created from Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. And all what we saw in previous chapters, this chapter from last 50 odd verses, the description of Visarga is happening. So the canto 3 and 4 talks about Sarga and Visarga, the primary creation and the secondary creation. And after that comes Sthana. Sthana means the location. So Visarga, Brahma creates all these living entities, and these living entities need a place to stay. And description of those places is called Sthana. So in 5th canto, we can see the description of various planetary systems. Abrahma Bhuvana Loka, Punaravartino Arjuna. So starting from Brahma Loka, all the way to lower planetary system, there's a description of detailed description of these planetary systems, where there's living entities who have desire to enjoy, takes different bodies according to their various karmas. Sometimes they are Indra, sometimes they are Indra Gopa, tiny worm, sometimes they are Brahma, and sometimes they are in the lowest hellish condition of life. So the description of this sthana, or the location, is made. And the fourth one is, what is the fourth one? Fourth one is Poshana. Poshana is how Lord protects his devotees. Poshana means even literally, how is one fed, or like a child is fed by the mother and given poshana, fed. So how I'm protected. So that aspect of poshana is described in 6th canto. So we can see the story of Ajamila, the story of Indra, the story of Daksha. Ajamila in all, for reason of all technical reasons, he's not even a devotee. He's a very sinful person. But out of some good fortune, he, even not consciously, unconsciously, chants Narayana's name, and how Narayana himself sends his servants, Vishnudutas, and protects him. So the element of protection, Poshana, is described in 6th canto. 7th canto talks about, what is that, Yuti? Yuti. And Yuti, what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, describes Yuti as karma vasana, or the desire to perform certain activities. Karma vasana. So there could be good desires or bad desires. That's described in 7th canto. Good desires are like bad desires. Let's start with bad desires. Like Hiranyakashipu, he performed a lot of austerities. When it comes to performing austerities and penances, he performed very severe austerities and penances. but his motivation was wrong. So his karma vasana, the activities what he performed, were not, healthy. And then, so because of that, you can see, the result of the karma vasana. He has to meet death, in a very short time. And then in the same canto, good activities are described, performing good karma vasana, Prahalad Maharaj. And Prahalad Maharaj also performed various austerities and penances by tolerating his father, Hiranyakashipu. So, he performed austerities. But his mood was, in the right place, which is Krishna. And due to that, he achieved the status of a Mahabhagavata. So that is Canto 7. And Canto 8 talks about Manvantra, the reign of various Manus. And now we can see in these verses, how Manu and Swayambhu Manu and Shatarupa, they unite, and how they are created, how they get united, and then through them how Uttanapada and Priyavrta take birth, and the three daughters, Akruti, Prashuti, and Devahuti, they take birth. And from Uttanapada, Dhruva Maharaj lineage comes in, and from Priyavrta, the Rishabhadev's lineage comes in, and Bharat Maharaj lineage comes in from Priyavrta. So those descriptions are detailed in Canto 8. Canto 9 is Ishanukata. Talks about Ishanukata, or the activities of the Lord, especially Lord Rama and Lord Krishna. So Canto 9 and Canto 10 talks about Ishanukata, the glorious pastimes of Lord Ramachandra is described in Canto 9, and then 10th Canto is Lord Krishna. And also in these cantos, there is also Mukti is also described, liberation, how one can achieve liberation. Of course, there are different kinds of liberation. The Sahaja, which is the lowest form of liberation. For Gaudiya Vaishnavas, for the followers of Mahaprabhu, the definition of liberation for us is attaining Swarupa. That is called liberation. We are not, like for example, Vishishtadvaitavadis or the Sri Vaishnavas, they are interested in the topmost liberation. Param Gatva, the topmost liberation. They are interested in topmost liberation. But we, Gaudiya Vaishnavas, we don't care topmost or lowest. Our definition of liberation is to achieve our Swarupa, so we can go back serving the Lord in whatever what we are destined to, whatever we are supposed to serve, however we are supposed to serve. So that's moksha for us. So that's described in 10th canto. And 11th canto and 12th canto describes Nirodha, or destruction. How finally the planetary systems are destroyed. Planetary systems are destroyed. I think I got only 2 clients, and if you fall asleep in front of me, can you stand up, please? Sorry. Otherwise, it's kind of discouraging to speak. I got to see somebody to speak. Thank you. Where I was, Nirodha. And the last one is Ashraya. Ashraya means the shelter. How Krishna is a shelter for all the living entities, even those who are materially inflicted or those who are not materially inflicted. Of Krishna is the ultimate shelter, Ashraya. And of course, for pure devotees, he is Ashraya. And then through taking shelter of Krishna, and they can achieve mukti. So these are the 10 topics described in Srimad Bhagavatam. And as these 10 topics are described, this literature is considered, qualifies as a Mahapurana. Yeah. So we can discuss more about the glories of Bhagavatam. We saw the definition of why it's a Purana, and then how it qualifies as a Mahapurana. Then also Bhagavatam is also described sometimes as a lamp, or lamp. So because it shows the living entity who they actually are, that they are spirit souls and they're also servants of the Lord. And it also shows, Paramatma, who is Paramatma, how he resides in the heart. And, Brahman, Bhagavatam shows Brahman. I think in the second canto it goes into detail. Brahman describes Brahman, then Paramatma. And then it also shows the Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna himself. So, if you go to South Indian temples, when they do an arati, or when they they usually do arati with camphor or sometimes in ghee lamp. They usually show, this is Lord's feet, this is Lord's feet, this is Lord's hands in this particular deity. He is having the Abhaya Mudra or whatever, or in some temples, like for example, if you go to Mannargudi, the Rajagopalan temple, there in his hand it's written Sarvadharman Parityaja Mame Ekam Saranam Raja. So he's Sharanagati Mudra. He's offering the Sharanagati Mudra. So they show with the lamp. He's offering the Sharanagati Mudra in his lamp, or he's having a conch and chakra in his hand. So they show the conch and chakra. And some deities have Garbhodakashayi Vishnu coming out of his navel. So they show, Chaturmukha Brahma in Padmasana. So with the lamp, they show, various attributes of the deity. Similarly, Bhagavatam, as a lamp, its analogy is used as a lamp, describes various aspects of the Lord. It shows who we are. It shows Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So, Srimad Bhagavatam is, glorified as a lamp in that sense. And it's also glorified as, compared to sun. So when a sun rises in the horizon, of course it gives light. It gives light and knowledge one can see. Similarly, Bhagavatam, when Krishna disappeared, and Bhagavatam was spoken to decimate the darkness in Kali Yuga and to give the knowledge for the people in Kali Yuga. So it's considered as the sun. Not only that, sun not only gives knowledge or brightness, but also as soon as the sun rises, all the thieves and rascals disappear. They can't perform their evil acts, so they disappear. Similarly, Bhagavatam decimates all the evil thoughts in one's heart. And also Bhagavatam also decimates people who are not qualified to progress, to understand Bhagavan. So Bhagavatam also, like a sun, as the sun decimates thieves and rascals, similarly Bhagavatam also chases away unqualified people. And Bhagavatam is described as phalam. Phalam means fruit. The fruit of Bhagavatam is described as one without skin or seed or strings. If, for example, if you eat a mango, the mango has skin and it has a seed inside, and it also has strings. It gets stuck in your teeth. But Bhagavatam is purely rasam, purely flesh, sweet flesh. There is no unwanted seed or skin, nothing like that, or strings. It's pure rasa, pure nectar. Mango with mango is quite sweet by itself, but imagine mango without the skin, without the seed, and without the strings. Just pure flesh, pure flesh. Similarly, Bhagavatam is considered phala. So, which so devotees can relish the pastimes of the Lord, pastimes of the Lord. And there is where was I? And also, Bhagavatam it's compared to Mohini Murti sometimes. Mohini is someone, when the ocean was churned, when the milk ocean was churned, the nectar came out, and the demons took hold of the nectar, and to get the nectar back from the demons to the demigods, the Lord appeared in the form of Mohini Murti. And as Mohini Murti, he distracted, or she distracted, or deceived the demons, and got the nectar back from them and gave it to devotees. Similarly, Srimad Bhagavatam has the quality of what's the word? Deceiving. Thank you. Deceiving people who are interested in karma, jnana, and those activities, mundane speculators, or people who are interested in fruitive activities. So Srimad Bhagavatam also confuses them. Mundane scholars, Maya, Prahata, Jnana, mundane scholars. So Bhagavatam confuses them through its description. What to speak of karmis, jnanis, it also confuses even devotees to some extent. You can see how the devotee class who think Earth is flat, and some consider Earth is round, and they are very furious. The people who consider Earth is flat within our devotee community, they are very staunch believers, and they are very very heavy about it. All you have to do is sit next to them, and they can talk to you for hours how Earth is flat. I'm talking devotees. Even devotees can easily get confused or carried away by topics which are not leading us to the Lord. So Bhagavatam offers that, so one has to be careful. And of course in 11th canto, there's Jnana Yoga is described, and Ashtanga Yoga is described. So one might, the people who are into Jnana Yoga, the impersonalist or mundane speculators, they might see, the 10th canto, the 11th canto, when a book approaches its end, generally the topics of high importance are described, generally. So the jnanis and the yogis, they think, it's coming to an end, 11th canto, so it is describing Jnana Kanda and Ashtanga Yoga and Karma Kanda. So then they get bewildered, thinking that the essence of Bhagavatam is Jnana Kanda and Karma Kanda and Ashtanga Yoga and those activities. So it bewilders them also. So that's how Bhagavatam deals with people who are not interested in devotional service. It bewilders people not interested in pure devotional service and interested in karma, jnana, and yoga processes. So these are the various qualities of Srimad Bhagavatam, and it is as I mentioned, it's not necessarily very easy for us to understand. Generally, sound, I can't remember the technical names of it. Sound has four forms, four kinds of sound. One sound you hear, it doesn't, you just hear, and when we were young, the teachers used to say, we are teaching, it goes through one ear and comes out of the other ear. It doesn't sink through. Now that's one kind of sound. You hear and it doesn't make sense. you don't get any realization. Then the other three kinds of sounds, gradually sound vibration, which goes into the heart, which gradually goes into the heart. And then the final, the best part of the sound is absolute. What you hear is absolute, immediately realized. Whatever you hear is immediately realized. Say, if you say Krishna, immediately the sound is realized, you immediately realize Krishna. So, according to one's realization, according to one's purity, similarly, Srimad Bhagavatam is understood in four kinds of ways. Some people just hear these topics and doesn't make sense. For some, according to their realization, this matter, this topics discussed, makes more sense for others. Again, we are all born in Kali Yuga, so the topics of the fifth canto, planetary system, how Krishna creates through Karnodakashaya Vishnu, Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, Shirodakashaya Vishnu. These are all for us. It's like the first kind of sound vibration. We just hear it and we kind of memorize it, and we repeat it. But we actually, it's, I don't know. Maybe you guys understand. I don't understand. I just bookworm, what do you call that? What is that? Parrot. Listen and repeat, which is okay, which is all right. And there's third, it is important, the topics of how the glories of the Lord, the glories of the holy name, if those things are realized, that's good enough. So these topics should be, they are there for a reason, and they should be read. Just because, as I mentioned, our Purvacharyas have read, Sukadeva Goswami has spoken, Parikshit Maharaj has described them. And again, just because we don't understand, or it doesn't make sense to us, or just because it's not helping us in our preaching, we can't go outside and talk to the scientist and say the whole material creation was created by the glance of the Supreme Personality God. They're not going to accept. Just because these things, they don't accept, or we don't understand, or they're complex, doesn't mean we have to skip them neither. We can't just skip them and just go to Ishanukata, Canto 9 or Canto 10, even though they are sweet. We can't skip. We have to still faithfully listen to them. If you realize, or we understand, or we don't understand, we have to listen to them. It's funny, even in recent years, Prabhupada criticized a lot about people jumping to 10th canto, going to 10th canto. And I see here, young devotees traveling around the world, and they're preaching. They start with Venu Gita, or Madhurashtakam. Young people, they're very good speakers, eloquent speakers, well presented, they can chant the mantras very well. They know the description, the slokas nicely, and they have the right meters, everything, very nicely presentable. Good. But they are talking about 10th canto. They're traveling and talking about 10th canto. This is exactly what Prabhupada didn't want us to do. Instead talk about, the creation. The three, the Karnadakashaya Vishnu, Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, and Shirodakashaya Vishnu. It gives the same benefit. But, not so mature people try to jump. And even if they are qualified, you also have to be conscious of the audience. People coming, are they qualified to hear these topics? Are they qualified to hear Venu Githam or Gopi Githam or Madhurashtakam? They are beautiful, they're wonderful. Acharya has written it for us to read and understand, but you have to be careful, knowing where we are and also knowing where our audience are. So, all these 8 cantos are there, to protect us, from immaturely jumping into 9th canto or 10th canto. So, one has to be very careful. If you want to talk about the glories of the holy name, the sixth canto, the samvad between the conversation between Yamaraj and Yamadutas, that glorifies Krishna Sankirtan very nicely. We don't need to go to immaturely or prematurely go to 10th canto for it. So that's the thing. Srimad Bhagavatam also confuses, people by misleading. So we have to be also follow how the acharyas have taken it, how acharyas have focused, how acharyas have read the scriptures, how acharyas have commented on it, and read Bhagavatam according to that mood. Sorry, what? I will come to question and answers later. So where was I? Yeah. So this is how Bhagavatam is read. I'm not talking about how you know Krishna, how you understand Bhagavatam, how you approach Bhagavatam. You go through from Canto 1 all the way to step by step. Understand Sarga, Visarga. First you understand Sarga and Visarga, or at least know about it. Then you can appreciate how inconceivable, achintya, the Lord is here. Even in these verses, even Brahma doesn't know. He is perplexed. He's doing everything right, but the creation is not happening. He is perplexed, achintya. So the quality of the Lord is achintya, inconceivable. What is it? Premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena antasada vileshu vilokayanti yat shama sundaram chintya gunaswarupam. His name and form and qualities, gunaswarupam, his qualities and form are achintya. And one has to, might or might not understand, but should be in a position to appreciate that, how achintya the Lord is. Then once you understand achintya, then how inconceivable Lord is, then you'll be able to, when we eventually come to 10th canto and 9th canto, you'll be able to appreciate the Lord's pastimes and activities. So to be faithful to the text, it's not much to speak here. It's quite straightforward. Brahma is perplexed because the creation is not happening. Here are some key words. The words used here is viryam. Viryam means potent. Prabhupada uses the word often. It's also mentioned. This word is also mentioned in what? Canto 3, chapter 25, text 25. Satam prasanga mama virya samvido. Virya means potent. Mama virya samvido. So, virya, in a mundane sense, Prabhupada again gives this example. Virya means when a man is healthy, virya, as soon as he unites with the female, and if the female is fertile, there's immediately pregnancy. So that's virya, potent. A person is potent. And similarly, the same word is used in this verse 3:25-25. Satam prasanga mama virya samvido. The topics or discussions about me is virya. It immediately cleanses the heart and impregnates one with love of God. Rahasya. So, the hridaya, tatkarna, enters through the heart and impregnates the heart. So, karna enters through the ears and impregnates the heart with the love of Krishna. So, virya is the word is used. Similarly, here, all the people who are created by Brahma in these last 50-odd verses, they are all very virya, they are very potent. In spite of being very potent, there is no creation happening. It's not like Brahma created sterile people and he's worried. He created very virile people. Is virile the similar word? Virile, is it? No? Yes? No? Don't know. Okay, virile. So potent people, and then the creation is not happening. So he is worried. because the whole idea of creating this whole planetary systems is so that the living entities who doesn't have a gross body can get a gross body, and so that they can grow towards Krishna. So use that body and practice devotional service with the help of the body, practice devotional service, and gradually or swiftly go to Krishna. So that's not happening, so Brahma is worried. Similarly, devotees, grastas, should also have not just, one kid or half a kid, they should have like many children. The easy way to preach. You go and, convince people, and they might not take after, spending hours and hours or days or years, and they still leave, but if you have, if grastas, they should have many children, so that the living entities who doesn't have gross body are looking for a body to practice devotional service, get an opportunity to obtain a human form of life, and through those human form of life they can approach Krishna. So Brahma is in the same predicament, and then for topics which it says which can't be explained, so there's no point of me trying to explain, so I would just not bother about it. Two entities appeared, and those entities, when they involved in sex, they became Swayambhu Manu and Shatarupa, and then they started engaging in sexual activities, and fill the world with population who could use their form of body, material form of body, to achieve liberation. Okay, it's 10 minutes to 9. I will stop here. If you have any questions or comments, well, to answer the question, well, yes, Prabhupada did write a Krishna book. Sorry, I didn't make you understand. I just hope you understand. You need an audience to speak. If there's no audience, it's hard. It said, Srimad Bhagavatam purifies if a speaker sees a person. Nowadays, everybody like to hear Bhagavatam through digital media or through video or something, not being present before the speaker. Well, I'm not that qualified speaker, that's okay. But generally, if Bhagavatam is spoken, it's nice that people actually sit in the front and get the glance of the speaker. Because the glance of the speaker purifies, not just the words, just the glance of the speaker purifies the listener. So we can say when Sukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj had the conversation, the demigods all came. And all the great rishis, they all came, sat down before Sukadeva Goswami and listened. They saw him and they listened to him. They all had the capacity to listen from their own remote locations. They can sit in their houses, demigods, in a comfortable position, and they could have listened. But they all decided to come and personally be present in front of the speaker. Of course, COVID, but again, we don't want excuses, but it's nice that, people hear Bhagavatam and in person. What is that famous pastime of Lord Shiva? When Chaitanya Bhagavat was spoken, he came so swift that his body was so, he came so swift. I can't remember the pastime. Brahma, it's a pastime of about Lord Shiva in Navadvip. There's a deity of Lord Shiva in one of the dweeps of Navadvip. Hamsavahan is Brahma, isn't it? Hamsavahan is Brahma. He took the, thank you. Yeah, he took the Hamsa, yeah, that's right, yeah. He took the Hamsa, yeah. So even he personally came and personally listened. Now he could have just stay there and listened. But when he knew that Bhagavatam or Chaitanya Bhagavatam is spoken, he himself came to the extent he borrowed. Thanks, Maharaji. Brahma's vehicle and listened. So it's important Bhagavatam is listened in person. So So where I was, yes. So the speaker needs an audience, otherwise looking at a wall or it's difficult, makes it it's hard for me to speak. And the question about Krishna book. Well, we are talking about how Bhagavatam is read, should be read. Prabhupada, of course, wrote a very simplified version of Krishna book. I mean, simplified version of the 10th canto, so people can understand who Krishna is. It's not they have to wait to even know who Krishna is. They have to read 9 cantos before even to know a glimpse of what Krishna is. So Prabhupada, out of his mercy, wrote Krishna book. And in those books, he keeps it quite civil, and he doesn't go into the most intimate pastimes. What describes in 10th canto, it's a synopsis of what described. So it's not the 10th canto; it's a synopsis of 10th canto. It's not the detailed description of the 10th canto. So that's So of course we sell Krishna books so people can understand Krishna. To the extent Prabhupada even said. In Mayapur early days, when devotees were teaching English to the village kids, they were using Krishna book to teach. Prabhupada said, use Krishna book to teach because I made it a very simple language. I wrote this book in a very simple language, so people even who are not very good in English can understand, Krishna. But the instruction is very clear about reading Bhagavatam. One cannot skip. When you're giving Bhagavad Pravachan, one can't jump to 10th canto. That instruction is very clearly established, whether Prabhupada printed Krishna book and distributed Krishna book or not. But when you approach Srimad Bhagavatam, how it should be approached is being very clearly established by Prabhupada. And he also criticized very much about Bhagavad Saptas and things like that. It has to be systematically read, starting from Visarga, Sarga and Visarga, and eventually coming to the 10th canto. Yeah. Yes. You got to speak up. I can't hear. Thank you. Disseminates what? Yeah. Well. No, I didn't say that. I said it delusions people who have deceiving nature, who get rid of them, thieves and rascals who are not interested. Well, usually when it comes to the spiritual boundary, the thieves and rascals are dharmadvajas, people who are pretenders, or people who are interested in karma, jnana and yoga. Or maya apahrita jnana. People who think that they know, they have mundane knowledge, so they start thinking or interpreting according to their mundane knowledge. So scholarly people, so that's... Yeah. Yeah, well, we all have different anarthas, and if they're actually reading Bhagavatam, and as I mentioned, as I described Bhagavatam, Bhagavatam is described as a lamp. It shows in person they are anarthas, and they have a choice. They have a choice to say if they want to purify their anarthas or they want to ignore what the Bhagavatam highlights. And then one has to be sincere of what their goal is. They could have a sincere goal to become, to do politics. Generally, people do politics to attain some kind of position or power. Well, if that's what you want, okay. But if you ignore Bhagavatam, Parikshit Maharaj, the most powerful king, he had all the power, even he had the power to even counteract the curse. But he chose to give it up and focus on Bhagavatam. So the Bhagavatam highlights, shows the torch of knowledge, shows the knowledge, The goal is not to attain power, because the guy who is already powerful, consciously, even though he can counteract, ignored that propensity and focused on cultivating oneself. So, if one takes up Bhagavatam in that spirit, in the true spirit, and reads in true spirit, it encourages them to their process. It purifies their propensity, and then helps the person progress. If people are stuck in their anarthas, well, they are stuck. It takes time. They generally get bewildered, get disillusioned, because Krishna is the owner. Prabhupada is the original temple president. All those positions are taken. If you're trying to compete with those positions, eventually you will get disillusioned, and you will disappear if you're not taking advantage. So, a sincere sincere person, don't get agitated by looking at others' anarthas. We are just busy, trying to understand. There's just so much things to do. Who has time for all these things? There's just, I get overwhelmed with the amount of books I need to read. Things I want to read, and just our own Acharya's books. I get overwhelmed. And I come from Sri Sampradaya, and there's plenty of books there also. And I always have this propensity. I want to read some of those books. Because I come from. It's not like I'm not recommending others to do. It overwhelms me to know just how much things just to read. And where there's time to fight with people's whatever. Yeah. Okay. Any more questions? Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki Nitai Go Premanande Hari Bo Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.